everyone. Duty Hayes, Policy Training Director, and that's me. And our email boxes are open for any questions you have. So, about State of Michigan procurement. So, we're part of the Department of Technology Management and Budget. And we're the central procurement office that serves as the state's central purchasing office. Central procurement acts on behalf of state agencies, handling every aspect of the bidding process for most goods and services in amounts of over $500,000. DTMB, as an agency, has a portfolio of approximately 800 contracts, and it's worth billions of dollars. Many contract periods average 3 base years and have 2 additional 1-year renewal options, though that can vary by contract.
What's the maximum?
Option years?
There really is no maximum. It really depends on what they're buying and what makes sense. But typically, you're not gonna see like 20 option years or anything like that. More than likely, we would rebid it.
If you want to see, and we mentioned that portfolio of contracts. If you go to our website, it's DTMB procurement, or michigan.gov/MI procurement. Scroll down to the bottom, there is an Excel sheet, and that has every contract listed out. So it's a big Excel sheet, it'll show you all the information you know, and you can click through and you can see the contract. It comes up, and all the info is right there. One thing to keep in mind is when you click that and open it up, if you don't see those contracts, scroll left. I get a surprising amount of calls, people say, you're missing 3 columns. You need to scroll left. It's just a quirk of how Excel works.
Can you repeat those instructions one more time, please? Where it is?
If you go to michigan.gov/MI procurement, that's our front page. If you look towards the bottom of the page, you will see that Excel sheet.
Okay.
Super handy. I send a lot of vendors there. So, next slide. Oh, yeah, this is what we were just talking about. This is what you see when you just scroll left. So this is a snapshot of DTMB's central procurement contract list. And by clicking View Contract, under the links to contract on the left, you can download or view a PDF version of each contract. You'll be able to review the entire contract. That includes current specifications, change notices, and pricing. On the contract cover sheet, you'll find other important information such as the buyer's name, phone number, the department day-to-day contact name and phone number, and the vendor sales representative's name and phone number. And our office is also available to answer questions. The cumulative amount is the estimated, emphasis on estimated, spend at the time of the contract award for all the base years, and is not reflective of actual spend. That can be less. On the right, you will see the current expiration date of the contract, not including any potential option years. Read the contract or talk to the buyer to determine the timing of the next solicitation. Contracts typically run 3 to 5 years with 2 to 3 1-year options to extend. Solicitations can go up to 6 months before the expiration date, depending on complexity or dollar amount. If there is an existing contract for your product or service in place, don't be discouraged. And this is written a little bit more from a buyer consuming this presentation. Studying, we would tell a vendor, studying the DTMB Central Procurement Contract List gives you an excellent opportunity to look at specifications and pricing, to ask questions, and be more prepared when the contract is put out to bid again. The handiest way to search this, the easiest way to search this is Control F is your friend. Use the find function in Excel. And it should be noted that this list does include some non-DTMB contracts.
Is there a question?
Yeah, you said that the cumulative amount is the total amount to be expended in the base year. But let's say it was like a 3-year thing, like a base year, 2 option years.
It would be like the 3 base years, not what's contemplated in the option. years.
Okay.
That's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Because we don't know that we're gonna exercise those options.
Okay.
Well, what's a non-DTMB contract? Less than 500,000?
Yeah, or it could be more than 500, because we have 22 state agencies, and they all have their own purchasing departments too, but they're handling like smaller solicitations, and then sometimes they have delegated authority to handle higher bids too, that are above 500. So they are required to, they don't all do it, to send us their contracts, their multi-year contracts, and post them here. So you can, if you look through this list at the bottom of the list, you'll see other agencies' contracts. Not in their entirety, because they're not consistent about doing that. Over time, you'll see more and more in them, because we counsel them on that. That's kind of-
If, once those, what do you call them, additional periods are exercised, does that amount change to include them, or it just remains the base?
No, it keeps getting adjusted.
Anything else? Moving on. This shows how DTMB breaks down how we purchase things. So central procurement contracts are put into place by 2 divisions, commodities and professional services and information technology. Each division has a team of analysts and specialists who manage contracts. These divisions make up the Central Procurement Services Office at the state of Michigan. DTMB also has purchasing areas for design and construction and real estate. These offices also have staff that manage solicitations. The real estate division includes leasing. The state often leases space statewide. There is a webpage and listserv devoted to both of these on DTMB's website. So, example of some commodities. The Commodities and Professional Services Division is responsible for purchasing a really wide array of products and services. The list in front of you covers only a small number of types of commodities handled by this group. Some of you, one of them not necessarily obvious is energy. For the state's purposes, for our purposes, energy refers to the acquisition of natural gas, fuel oil, propane, as well as alternative energy and energy conservation consultants. Commodity and Professional Services Division is also responsible for purchasing infrastructure services such as lawn care and snow removal, and some of the other stuff is listed there. And the Commodities and Professional Services, this is the professional services part of that, also handles contracts related to the procurement and professional services such as advertising and consulting. It is also responsible for the state's healthcare contracts, and because of that expertise, also handles pharmaceuticals and related services. This area also handles contracting for other professional services besides what you see listed here. So we're going to pivot towards IT. This kind of covers the commodity and professional services. Before we switch to IT, any questions?
We had a client of ours who was trying to, he has fertilizers, and he was trying to figure out a clear path to get one tested or get on your approved list, and was having trouble getting answers to that question.
What kind of?
It's a fertilizer. He manufactures his own fertilizer
We don't for lawn.
for lawn care.
I don't know, we don't have any kind of preferred vendor list for that.
Well, but it's a product list. That's, certain fertilizers are on that list, or at least that's what he was told.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Okay,
I'm not aware of any contracts for fertilizers that our office holds.
okay.
I suppose it's possible that DNR or agriculture may have a contract. What do you think, Janet, do you remember from
We
DNR?
typically, yeah, when I was with DNR, we didn't have contracts for
Yeah.
fertilizer because we bought such low volumes of it that it wasn't worth putting like on a master bed.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe we would rely on our, if you're talking about lawn fertilizer, like
Yes, that's what it
our
is. Yep.
vendors that we contract with for those services, we would typically expect them to provide it.
So the vendor.
I'm not aware, I mean, you can,
Right.
if you find, maybe there's some sort of list out there, but I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right,
So, no answer to my question.
Okay.
so IT covers contracts for telecom, hardware services, software, custom developed software applications, mobile applications, et cetera. This is not a comprehensive list. This is only a partial list. The state has contracted with an outside company called Computer Aid Inc., so CAI, if you ever hear us say CAI, that is the short form for Computer Aid Inc. And they provide a web-based vendor management system for various hourly IT services. If you are, and this would be something, also this is presenting vendor language, but if you are a vendor interested in providing IT staffing to the state, please register with Computer Aid Inc., CAI. Get started by visiting michigan.compaid.com.
That's on our website. I mean,
Yep.
we get a lot of questions. We get a lot of questions about IT staff log. Do you get those? So we've had a vendor managed system for a number of years now where we have this company in the middle. We used to do it ourselves, but we stopped. So this company takes all the resumes, vets them, and we need an IT staff log. We go to this company and they send us candidates and then we do the interviews. So this company's in the middle of it. And any interested parties need to try to sign up through that company. And that's all, if you go to our My Procurement website,
Yep.
that's all written down and how the vendor needs to do that, so.
I would say when I'm sitting at a table at the various Meet the Buyer events, that's a big chunk of who visits the table are people interested in that. So it's a handy thing to know.
The state hires a lot of temporary IT staff, because we,
It's at all levels too.
lots of different categories.
So, switching to real estate. So real estate division manages leases for the state. The state lease, and you can see stats there, 4,500 leases, about 5 million square feet, around $78 million in annual rent. State leases a considerable amount of office and warehouse space across Michigan. If a vendor would be, I'm going to sort of shape the language here again too. If vendor is interested in leasing the space to the state, go to michigan.gov/myprocurement, programs and policies, real estate leasing to receive bid notifications. Design and construction. So we got some stats there, about 350 contracts annually. They average $100 million annually. And the design and construction division purchases construction, engineering, and architectural services. They also bid out painting, plumbing, HVAC, and other similar contracts. This group is also in charge of implementing the state capital improvement program. Current bids will be on Sigma, hi Sigma, on the vendor self-service system, and we'll be talking more about that coming up. Sigma's here. And it should be noticed that Designing Construction has their own webpage on DTME section of Michigan.gov. Other contracting offices. We're not the only game in town. The Michigan Department of Transportation handles its own purchasing for road and bridge maintenance and construction. Many of the projects use federal funding and may need to follow federal regulations. MDOT has a disadvantaged business enterprise, something probably a lot of you are all very familiar with. This program assists minority, women-owned, and other disadvantaged businesses. Visit the MDOT website at michigan.gov/MDOT to learn more about this program and this MDOT office. Other contracting office, state agencies. This kind of walks through other agencies that do bidding. Each individual state agency has delegated authority to make purchases up to a certain dollar amount. The threshold is currently $500,000 across the board. DHHS, so Department of Health and Human Services, and MDOC, Department of Corrections, have authority to purchase all direct human services, physicians, social workers, counselors, that kind of thing.
Greg, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I know that the individual agencies can make purchases up to $500,000, and on one of your beginning slides, it says you establish contracts in excess of $500,000. Do you also do contracts for less than that? Or is it, do the individual agencies make all their own contracts that are less than that?
Typically, the agencies are doing anything under 500. They typically like to do that. But they also will make some purchases over 500. That's if we give them special permission to do that. Now, across the board, they get to do up to 500. And if there's some other kind of solicitation that they want to take on, they have to come to us and ask for permission. Say, you know, because of our expertise with boats or whatever, DNR may want to, Jenny used to work there. They might want to do their own bid for a boat. And so we'll say, yeah, we agree that you have better expertise on your agency than we do. So we'll let you do it even though it's $1 million or $1.5 million or something like that. But we're not normally getting into anything under 500 because they generally don't kick it back to us.
Has that amount been that for a while, or did it change?
It changes. It's been changing. This is a relatively new amount.
Okay, I thought, yeah.
Used to be by agency, it varied from 25 to 250. It was different.
Yeah.
Honestly, before that, when I started, it doesn't require posting. It can be posted, but it doesn't need to be. So it's like RFQs, you know, you go get your 3 quotes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be talking more about this, I think, in 201. We anticipate that changing, by the way. It's not in the slides here today, and it's not changed yet. It'll likely change, I'm thinking maybe as early as next week, so we'll stay in touch about it. But that limit will be going up to 50,000. So then you're not gonna have to post until 50. That's the way I understand it today. So today it's 10, and in the future, it looks like it's going to 50. By law, we have to do it at 50. I don't know if you're familiar with the Management Budget Act, which specifies that. It says if it's 50, if the solicitation is for 50 or more, it must be posted publicly for 14 days. So that's what by policy, we're going lower than that, but it looks like we're gonna go to 50.
How would you recommend then our clients find that kind of low-hanging fruit below that threshold?
Just kind of like we do now. I mean, right now, the way we recommend they find low-hanging fruit, 10,000 low, is they are free to contact the individual purchasing agencies, and it's in the presentation, I think, about.
It's right here, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
How to get
Yep.
that list. Okay.
So go to the Department of Corrections and talk to them.
You can call them, all their buyers
Yep.
for the prisons are on the list. and say, hey, I'm looking to, I'm interested in the lower dollar opportunities, because they still have to bid it, they don't have to post it, like they have to go get 3 quotes. And can I get in your, you know, like your Rolodex, so to speak, or can I give you my information? So, now, it's not to say that they're allowed, they can post them. I mean, it's not to say they may say, I post everything, I don't, you know. I know DNR, right, Jana, they posted, even if it's not required, they're gonna use the system. It's just that they're not required, so,
Does this first sentence mean that they're prohibited from posting?
no.
No, so they may be posted
May
publicly.
is the word.
Right, because it says may not, but they may be.
Very well may
May or
not
may
be.
not be.
May or may
It
not
could
be.
be.
Right.
By, just remember, by policy, we required it 10 and above today, and it looks like it's gonna move to 50.
And then the other part of this too, we would tell, you know, presenting this slide, presenting this information, we would say, there are opportunities to get involved in smaller projects, which are not necessarily posted publicly, which we just talked about. Individual state agencies obtain written quotes for projects less than 10, which might become 50. To learn about potential opportunities, use the directory of agency buyers on procurement's website. You'll have to directly market your product or service. So if you go to our website, you will find, like on our contact page, you will find a list. It's a PDF or it's an Excel sheet, and it is a comprehensive directory of all the agency buyers in the state. And usually when I'm at a meet the buyer, and I have vendors sitting in front of me saying, I only do small dollar things, what do I do? I'm like, treat this as like a cold call sales list. These are the people, these are the buyers in the state. Find natural fits for your product and start there. You can't guarantee that those people will call you back, but this is how you get on their radar. That's usually the language I use.
There are emails on that list, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so is there a preference, do you know, in just talking to them, whether they prefer an email or a phone call?
I've not heard anything.
Okay, just curious.
Humans are we're very variable creatures, so
Yeah.
some buyers might prefer phone calls, some buyers might prefer emails, you never know.
That is a kind of an interesting question. I've always wondered if they get bombarded with a lot of spam, or if there is a certain
probably
way
do. Yeah.
we should, you know, it might help them to know if they're working with a P-TAC, I don't know, since that way they know that they have some understanding on the
Yeah.
contracting process.
Right.
Do they know about us, about our,
We tell them about you all the time.
okay.
Janet's saying, Nate, some do. You know, like, you know how you see some of our buyers at Sigma events, where I want my colleagues to talk about Sigma in more detail. As you know, that's where we post our bids. The state posts its bids right on Sigma VSS. This system was implemented a couple years ago. Some of you in the room have seen many systems. When I started, it was Bid for Michigan, remember that? And then it migrated to Buy for Michigan. Now it's Sigma. This should be it.
Yeah, sure.
And the current system, Sigma, replaced not only our bid posting system, which was Buy for Michigan, but also our payments, which was the old C&P, Contract Payment and Express, what we used to call Main. So it actually overhauled, it replaced all that too, so it was a much bigger implementation. It's like a full ERP system versus the other was just like the purchasing, bid posting side. And we've gotten a lot of the, I'm sure you would agree, it's really running much smoother now that we've implemented it.
2 years.
Initially, you know, like any big system. Yes.
I know Bid for Michigan is still out there, and I know you don't have any control of who posts out there, but is there like any effort to get colleges and some of the municipalities to all go with Buy for Michigan instead of the Bid for Michigan? Because they make that hard for vendors to actually
There's a
find.
bid and a buy out there still?
Yes,
We don't control either. It's an outside vendor. It's bid.
but I mean the other state agencies that are, you know, county local agencies, Do they realize that they can post and buy from Michigan, or why they still use bid?
Wait, do you mean Sigma and not buy from Michigan?
Well, Sigma, yeah, but,
Well, the other municipalities often are in on that, bid, right?
yeah.
Which is the vendor that uses, that hosted by from Michigan, vendor from Michigan. I mean, we don't have any control, we don't control that. The local governments get to do what they want to do. They're able to use our system, and some of them are, right?
But to be very honest with you, there are a lot of local units in government who do post Sigma. We do a lot of
Yep,
presentations
instruction.
to them and,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep, they have to buy, a lot of the schools are using our system. Tons are using our system, they're
Local
supposed to.
governments.
Yep, and locals and community colleges. I'm sorry, I'm sure it is kind of confusing. It's just that it's not centralized, we do not get to
Right.
tell them what to do.
What does it say under this Sigma logo?
Yeah, some of the
I
slides.
think they were on transfer.
That's the hidden language.
Right?
One system for posting payment and,
I got it. One system for bid posting, payment, and to manage account information.
To manage your
all
account.
right, so I'm gonna just go and we're gonna be talking about this later today. So there's training, and you're gonna get a lot of your questions answered, because you guys gave us a list of questions and topics you wanted to address.
We'll try.
So, let's just move on, and there's a welcome page, has everybody seen that? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, because we're gonna get another 15 minutes or so for 101, and then we'll move to 201. Let's talk a little bit about pre-bid meetings. Are you all familiar with that concept where we have for some sorts of solicitations, pre-bid meetings, they're called job walkthroughs if it's construction, or pre-proposal meetings, known by different names. And it's typically types of solicitations where it involves, you need to really see it to put a good bid for, in like a construction site, or janitorial, where you're cleaning a building. Sometimes we hold them for even IT solicitations where we want to get the vendors all together so that they can ask questions. But really tell your clients that they really need to be cognizant if these meetings are mandatory. Because there's been more than one occasion where a bidder fails to go to a mandatory pre-bid meeting, and that just kicks them right out of the process. I've seen it happen with even CRO, which I'll talk about in a minute, CRO set-aside contracts, like incumbents do this. So it's just a basic thing they have to remember to do. And we'll talk a little bit more about pre-bid meetings later, but that's the basic thing, or one of the basic things. Tell your clients that they need to follow all the solicitation rules. Really what we mean by that is they should be directing all their questions to the buyer that's listed on the RFP. They shouldn't be calling Craig and me about it, because we're just gonna refer them to the buyer. Because they could risk disqualification doing that, plus they won't get the same information that everybody else is getting. Bids have a Q&A period. You're familiar with that? Almost every RFP will have that. And it's an opportunity for the bidders to get their questions answered so that they can create a better proposal. Those questions are going to be required in writing. So if they have a question, they shouldn't be calling the buyer and asking, because the buyer's just going to go tell them to put it in writing via the instructions in the solicitation. Typically, it's like email those questions in or put them in the system. And then once we collect all those questions and we answer them all at once, and we put a bid addendum out there. So all the questions are answered, so all the bidders get to see the same information. So any of your clients that should be discouraged from trying to call in with questions. This is really high level, but we'll talk a little more detail in 201. Again, tell them to make sure they respond to all of the details, more detail later, but that will really get them in trouble if they don't. And very importantly, submit on time. Just the other day in our office, I won't say who, I can't say who, but a big major bidder failed to get their bid in on time, and really would have been a major contender, and not protested, that's just not much we can do about it. Gotta get it in on time. So we tell people over and over, get it in on time, do not wait till the last minute. And Sir Sigma people can attest to this. Get it in like hours ahead of time, days ahead of time, to avoid being shut out of the bid. Because we can't do it. We can't like let one person in there and then it just opens up the door. So,
I'm gonna jump in with one bit of info for the pre-bid meetings. I get a lot of questions about, I'm not in a position to bid on this big construction project, but I would be interested in subcontracting. So I'm like, look, when the pre-bid meeting is, that's when you have an opportunity to network with those people.
yeah.
So you can still go to a pre-bid meeting even if you really aren't in a position to submit a full contract.
Yeah, because you want to network with the primes, particularly in construction. It's a really good place to do it. You know, the state of Michigan and other governmental entities is one of the type of entities that actually tells bidders up front how we're going to evaluate. You know, like in private sector, they won't do that, right? So we will identify the evaluation criteria in that solicitation document. We're going to tell you how many points we're going to put on each section of your proposal, of the bidder's proposal. Bids can be evaluated one of two ways, either by something, you heard that expression, Joint Evaluation Committee, JEC. That's a group of people that are, that come together to evaluate a bid, and it includes usually always includes the buyer and the subject matter experts and the program manager, and they come and evaluate. It's a team. Or if it's something smaller, it might just be evaluated by the buyer and the subject matter expert. So those are the two ways. And bids are generally graded on a 100-point scale. I've seen them higher, I've seen them as high as 120, seen them a little lower, but generally it's 100. And generally like 80 points is considered passing. It might be lower. It's all set forth in the bid document, the proposal instructions. We use a best value. Again, we're going to go into a little more detail in a minute. We use the best value purchasing process at the state. Does everybody know what that means? Okay. More than just price we're looking at. We can look at things like transition costs, total cost of ownership, and economic factors, etc. And then we publicly post our award recommendations on the system. Just a high-level description of a debrief. Again, we'll talk more about it, is something when a bidder comes in and doesn't get, it can be for a bidder that gets a bid or someone that doesn't. That's the more common scenario. We always encourage, and I hope you do too, to try to get a debrief. And then they learn about why they didn't get it, where their proposal fell short to the posted requirements. We will not, in those sessions, tell them how they did against their opponent, but how they did against the requirements. So it's a good way for them to learn about how to improve for the future.
Will they get written feedback or not necessarily? Because it says in person or via phone. They can't get their
Well, they got
score?
written feedback on the board recommendation and synopsis.
Okay.
So that's the document that we post after we decided who we're going to award to, and it lays out each bidder and their score and where they lost points.
Okay.
So your bidders ought to review that document before they come in for a in-person debrief, or they do it over the phone or conference call. Yeah.
Are you the window of time that they have to request the debrief?
3 days.
They can request it at any time. Sometimes we hold debriefs like months and years later. It's really best that they do it. We try to encourage them to come in before a protest period expires, just because that can help us.
And what is the protest period?
It is stated on the solicitation document, and it varies depending on what is being bid. It could be a little longer for something more complex, but it's stated on the proposal instructions. It's not in the award recommendation, so we'll have to look for it up front.
Are you required
Days.
to give them a meeting, a debrief? I mean, is that
Not
a requirement of the buyers to do it, or is it?
Well, we don't proactively say, oh, okay, bye, everybody, we're calling you and invite you to come in.
No, but
We're
I mean,
always
if I
be-
ask for it, you
Yeah,
have
look at it.
to?
Mhm.
Right. What you do.
by policy.
So they'll never say, no, we're not gonna,
Or just ignore your.
yeah, or just ignore you. I mean, you can never say never,
We're
right?
not supposed to.
Right.
No, we're supposed to do it. Now, if there was like a time crunch or something and they asked for a debrief, and said, we need to come in today, we may not be able to do it that day, but we'll always do it. Like I said, we've held them years after the fact. That's kind of strange, but we have.
And when you outsource the contracting too, because some other agencies you can outsource basically the contracting process to some state agencies have their own sort of, DTMB can, not outsource it, but they can provide their own agency guidelines for procuring, if issuing a contract, right? No?
I'm not following your question, Beth.
I think, Beth, are you talking about the example she gave earlier, where
Right.
the DNR's buying their own boat?
Yeah, exactly.
Do they follow the debrief?
Oh, yeah,
Same
yeah,
thing.
they follow our policies. Yep. Yep. There's some state purchasing preferences you ought to be aware of.
The top line got cut off for service disabled
Oh
veteran
my gosh.
business.
Yeah, okay.
Oh.
Everybody knows about the, do you know about the service disabled veteran-owned business preference?
Yes.
10% price preference for qualified disabled vets.
Do you have to register with the DA?
No, they don't have to be. But they have to have 3 pieces of documentation. They have to have proof of disability, which is generally a VA decision letter. They have to have proof of service, which is a DD 214. And they have to have proof of ownership. So they have to supply that paperwork. Or they can supply that certification from the
SB.
NBDC, Keith King's organization. You guys probably know him. Yeah.
Is that organization the one that actually verifies them, or is the state that verifies? Who
Which,
verifies?
NBDC?
I'm sorry?
NBDC?
They're the ones, and there's a cost for them to actually become verified?
If the vendor wants to get a certificate from NBDC, and we do not require it, there is a cost.
But if you don't require it, how do you verify that they actually are a veteran?
Because those 3 pieces of paper.
Okay, so those 3 pieces of paper,
Yep,
but nothing to do with management and control.
correct. Because our law doesn't say that they have to be managing the business. It just says ownership.
And how long does that certificate, that verification last?
If the vendor wants to get that certificate, I believe lasts for a year, and then they have to get it renewed.
On a yearly basis?
I believe so. That's NBDC. Or they can just send us, they don't need to do that. They can just send us those 3 pieces of paper.
So it's DD 214, proof of ownership, and what was the other one?
Proof of disability.
Proof of disability.
If you go to our website under programs and policies, there is a very comprehensive flyer that walks through
Yeah.
all of this. If you
Yes.
ever get any questions and you're like,
Yeah,
"Ooh,"
it's
you get
really
stuck.
comprehensive. Yeah, Jan?
Could you explain exactly how the 10% pricing preference works?
Okay, so
What does that look like?
Okay, and there's a explanation of it on the website too, but
Okay.
we take 10%, if you got a SDVOB bidder and a non-SDVOB bidder, we take, assuming the non-SDVOB bidder is the 10% of the low bid, and we deduct it from the SDVOB price, and then we compare, and we award at the price that was bid.
So I have a question in regards to businesses outside the state of Michigan who actually are service disabled veteran-owned businesses. They do qualify even though they actually are out of the state of
Yeah.
Michigan
Yeah.
as well? So is it, they're qualified because it's a reciprocal state or all states?
Because our law doesn't say otherwise. It doesn't say it has to be a Michigan SDVOB.
So if I'm a Michigan SDVO, service disabled veteran-owned business, if I go to Indiana and bid against businesses in Indiana, they will. This is what you're saying?
Just on veterans.
If I'm a service
Reciprocity.
disabled veteran-owned business here in the
Reciprocity.
state of Michigan, and I go to Indiana,
Okay.
and their laws state that they are only giving a price preference to businesses who are from the state of Indiana,
Uh-huh.
I can't compete there. I won't get that 10% price
Right,
preference.
not if
But
that-
in
that's what their law
Michigan,
says.
right, but in Michigan, the law says any state.
You don't
Any
have
business.
to get the 10% price preference, you don't have to be a Michigan SDOB.
We
Way
need
the
to
law-
change that law.
Well, you can,
Good
you know,
luck.
that's a matter for
Yes, we do.
the state legislature. Yeah.
Is that 10% preference recorded anywhere on the award?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. It's on the synopsis.
Yep, okay.
Yep. Another
Okay.
preference is,
I'm sorry, with the question to Delana, is it like that in other states, do we know? It is? Okay, because I was wondering if, okay.
In other states, they don't allow, even though we are a service disabled veteran-owned business, if we don't have a business in Illinois, for instance, Illinois, I actually did the research, we are not gonna get that 10% price preference. But if an Illinois business come in to the state of Michigan and bid against businesses here in the state, even though they're not a service disabled veteran-owned business, they'll get the business and then take the dollars and spend them in Illinois. Economic development, I just don't agree with it, so,
I understand.
yeah.
CRO, are you familiar with that set aside program? It's a little different. It's for community rehab organizations like Goodwill, Peckham. They don't get a price preference per se, but they can request that certain contracts be set aside for provision by that type of an organization. A committee votes on it, and then we put, if we agree, I happen to be on that committee, then that contract is set aside and it goes out to bid, and those types of organizations will get preference, unless market pricing would indicate otherwise. In other words, if the CRO is way high, the committee is probably gonna say, ought to set aside. It has to be within fair market.
Is the committee government, all government people?
The committee is comprised of one representative from the purchasing department, that happens to be me, and a member from a trade group, and 2 members at large, and a member from MRS, Michigan Rehabilitation Services. I think that's the group, so it's specified. Doesn't come up very much, but occasionally I get questions from the group here about it. The other preferences are the all things being equal, Michigan preference.
That's what's in here, it says all
Yeah.
things.
All things being
These are all things being equal preferences. If you're a Michigan-based business and everything is equal, and if permitted by federal statute, and that's important, because the federal statute could trump that, we were required to give a bid to Michigan Veterans. Everything is equal, yeah.
How equal do they have to be? I mean, it's hard to imagine.
It doesn't happen
it
very
being
much.
exact down,
Yeah.
right.
It happens very infrequently. It happens in the agencies. I've heard occasionally what happened out in the agency where it's something like gravel that is like so commoditized that it actually could be totally equal.
That makes sense.
Yeah. These other clean corporate citizens and bio-based, and I don't know if these preferences ever being exercised, but if everything is equal and the company is C3 certified, that means they've been certified to be good stewards of the environment by our Department of EGLE, our new department that handles natural resources. They get a bid. Never heard of that happening. Bio-based products, same thing. That's like soybeans. Everything was equal, price and technical, and it was made of soybeans in Michigan. Get it? I don't know about that ever being used. The new preference, this is, we all talked about, some of you came into our office and talked about this. This is preference given when everything is equal to geographically disadvantaged business enterprises. Talk a little bit more about that when I talk about MISC, but again, everything has to be equal.
Have you been seeing a lot of
I
awards?
don't know the stats on that. It's just so new.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about MISC before we leave today, so I'm going to kind of hit that harder. So this will have a little more teeth in it. when I tell you about the MISC program. Everybody know about My Deal? Yeah.
I have a question back on the Michigan preference. I thought, and this has been a while ago, that there used to be the reciprocal preference, so like,
Yeah.
if Indiana had a price preference,
Yeah, we're
Indiana program
supposed to
for
nip
10%,
them.
you still do that?
I would say it's not consistently done, but it's supposed to be.
So if the state that, if the Indiana and the Michigan business are competing against each other and Indiana has a price preference,
And that bidder is on one of, we're supposed to
you're supposed to reverse-
penalize.
them whatever they
Yeah.
gonna,
Based on whatever their price.
Yeah,
preference is.
right.
so you'd add 10% to their price or
Right.
whatever their preference might be.
Right.
So they
So
still
the-
do that, but I don't see it anywhere out there anymore.
It's out there. I can't, I'll be honest with you, I can't say that is consistently done, and it doesn't come up much.
And the reason they don't have the reciprocity is because they didn't want Michigan companies to get dinged from doing business in other states.
Why we don't have a preference.
Yes.
That's why we don't have a preference. They didn't want our Michigan companies.
There was some concern about that, but you know, I think there's some bills out there now that may even have some, a little bit, maybe will have a Michigan preference, so stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned.
It's, they're bills, you know, you never know how they're gonna go through the legislature. Yeah.
This has nothing to do with this, but I guess that's I mean, it does, but it doesn't. That's concerning to me that it's not practiced, the adding the 10% to the other, because if our businesses are leaving our state to compete and they're not able to compete because the business in Illinois, for example, is getting the preference, but then when the Illinois business comes to the state of Michigan, we're not going after?
Well, it doesn't happen that much,
Okay.
And
but
construction,
we may see that changing, just kind of stay tuned.
Yeah.
Some of this is kind of in the works,
do anything
maybe
about it.
seeing some changes, which we'll
She
communicate
can't
to
do
you.
anything about it.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
wasn't trying to get political.
no, yeah.
And I think most of you know this already, but for the new folks, their presentations, they're out on your website.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
when you update them, the updated ones
yeah,
are out there.
yeah, we will be updating with any new info.
Yeah, we keep them fairly up to date.
Yeah.
Every few months
Yeah.
we put up a new version.
Yeah, so but there are, like I said, I think there's like 13 bills out there right now, I haven't read through them yet, that all involve purchasing in Michigan. So we'll see what gets traction and what happens. And some of it does involve a Michigan preference, not just all things being equal. Are you familiar with My Deal?
Yes.
Okay. Local governments use our contracts, buy goods and services, same terms, conditions, and pricing. One thing to tell your vendors is, and we get this a fair amount, they hear about My Deal and they think, oh, I want part of that action. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, the hidden text says you must have a state of Michigan contract to have a My Deal.
Yeah,
contract.
that's the key. You can't just put your contract out on a list and they have it available to all local governments in Michigan. They have to have a state contract. Okay, so then these are the resources, and you're right at the top of the list.
Do we also have ours flashing with our big ceremony?
I will say that most of the vendors that come in, we recommend, like that, I answer our general email box, and all the vendors that come in, I'm like, you need to talk to PDAX, they're a really good
Wait,
resource.
little Craig.
And we're,
We get gold.
and we're tweeting about you guys all the time too.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
we do recommend you a lot. Okay, so now we're gonna checklist. It's kind of like, we tell our vendors, here's who we are. And one thing we do really try to stress is really do your research before you, I know you do too, before you get too excited about this. Like, determine if what you sell is what we even buy. That's why looking through the contract list is a good tool. I'm sure you see it too. A lot of vendors, that they want to sell something that we
They
absolutely.
just want to sell it.
And they can sell anything.
You just don't have any.
And they can sell anything.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, like that comment. What do you sell? Oh, anything.
Yeah.
What do you need? What do you need? There's our website. And our email list. Your vendors are welcome to join our email list where we broadcast info about our events and where we're going to be.
Yeah, we're breathing some life into it too, soon.
Yeah.
We use it infrequently, we've been using it more, and I see that as a continuing trend.
Yeah, we're having a 101 event in Lansing, like October 16th, so we broadcast it out through here.
And we're having one the day after.
I know you are. I know you are.
So whoever can't show up for yours, they can send them to ours.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's actually really good info, because I do get email from people that say, oh, I can't make it that day.
Yeah,
What do I
they're
need to
having one in
do?"
Macomb tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, matter of fact, we saw that just, and we said, well, at least if they can't make one of them, they can go to the other one.
Yeah, so do you want us to shoot you a quick note when we're getting ready to do one, so that if you get
Well,
called, you'll know what we've got? Or do you use the
Or we
PTAC
get yours,
solution?
we get like Beth's, we already know when Beth's doing hers, I think we know when Schoolcraft's doing hers. You can email us,
You
sure.
can refer them to the PTAX of Michigan event
Yeah.
calendar.
Right, but there's all kinds of stuff going on there, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, do you
We
want
can
to
tweet,
know?
and we tweet about it, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be
Feel free
helpful.
to.
and we're always looking for content for Twitter, always.
Okay. So there's our Twitter info. But feel free to send that to us, and then Craig can tweet about it.
Okay.
We have a new design and construction contracting manager. Did anybody, you probably knew Pat Mullen. He used to always recommend you. Anyway, Pat retired, and so, did you know that? He just retired.
Yeah, like a few weeks ago.
A few months. Well, when was it? May, wasn't it? May, end of May or something.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
Anyway, so Chris Garrison is the new manager. She started getting feet wet about, she knows that she's gonna be doing outreach events and so forth, but she's trying to learn the job right now. And those are the other contacts. I know you know MDOT. Just there at your events.
Me?
There's Craig's info. Okay. Any questions on 201 101 before we move into 201? These are the common types of solicitations that we do at the state of Michigan. An RFQ, which is the most basic, request for quote. RFP, request for proposal, that's most of what my office does. A newer solicitation type called an invitation to negotiate, which I'll talk about. A competitive proof of concept, that's newer. Have you heard of an RFI, request for information? That's really not a solicitation per se. It doesn't result in an award, but it's a request for information. And then we have pre-qualification programs. So I'll discuss each one of these. So this is like the jargon. The RFQ is the simplest type. And this is going to change, most likely, between 5 and 50, even though it says 10 there. So this is probably a lot of the smaller stuff that your vendors are maybe trying to get. You get enough of this, you do quite well. They're called informal because they don't have to be posted necessarily. They can be, but it's not required. But the buyer has to go get 3 written viable quotes. 3 written quotes. Kind of to Jana's point. They got to go and seek and get 3 written quotes. Between 5 and 50, probably, but now it's 5 and 10. Basic, there was a slide, but it's like, usually kind of non-complex. We're looking at price, delivery, warranty, that kind of thing. A lot of RFQs out there. An RFP is posted formally, that means out there on Sigma. And that'll change to over 50, because you could technically be doing an RFQ up to 50 when things change. But today, let's just go by today, it's over 10. I'll get into more of the documents associated with these in a minute. Okay, so you probably are coaching your clients about how to respond, to do a quality proposal. And you see RFPs designed in a couple different ways. Most of the time, we're identifying the critical requirements, business and technical requirements we need, and then we are asking for the vendor to provide a solution. We're trying to move to more solution-based, where we're not so,
Defining the
yes,
requirements.
yeah, what's that word? We're not so prescriptive. You may see over in the next next few years, us being less prescriptive, particularly in an IT solicitation. Instead of like 200 pages of requirements, maybe we would be, tell us what you can do.
Do you foresee any cyber controls becoming part of any of your solicitation
Oh, yeah.
processes?
Oh, yeah, well, we have to consult with cyber before we even put anything out there.
But in terms of a requirement, I think is what Beth
Yeah,
was saying, for the
yeah,
vendor.
there's requirements. They're out there. Yep, absolutely.
Are they standardized, John? or-
Kind of. They're out there. They should be in the bid, or there'd be a link to them.
Okay.
Have you heard of this newer thing we've got called an invitation to negotiate? We actually posted, it's called that, and it's posted on Sigma for at least 7 days. It's for something that we are confident that there's only one vendor that can do the work. Only one vendor out there. We're supposed to do research ahead of time or it could be a situation where we need maintenance for something that is only provided by one vendor.
Is it like a sole source?
Yeah, it's like that, but it's posted, it's publicly posted, and so other vendors can, even though we've identified the target, let's say, we need a Bell helicopter, because they're the only ones that make this helicopter with the requirements we need. And then we post it out there, and then other bidders have the opportunity to say, no, I do it too. So that's why it's competitive. It's really not like sole source in that respect. It's competitive, and then we say, oh, okay, we read through it, and then we decide, okay, we agree with you. We were wrong about that. And then we go back to, then we'll go post it. We'll pull it and we'll post an RFP.
Yeah, we call that sources sought in our world.
Okay, yeah. But it's supposed to be really, when we are convinced through our research, and they have to justify it, that there's only one game in town. Like Microsoft maintenance. Where you
Snap-on tool.
How about that? A competitive proof of concept is a newer solicitation type where we, again, are posting it publicly, and it's where we want to try something or pilot something at the state. And we're soliciting proposals from vendors that would say what we're interested in trying out. And then so then we run these pilots. It could be one pilot, it could be more than one pilot, and then there's an opportunity to go to full contract with the vendor. Mostly IT related, but it's a relatively new solicitation type, like a year old is all. You heard of it, Gina? It's probably news to Gina.
No, I've heard of it, we just don't have it in Sigma yet.
Oh.
So we won't see that until we
An RFI is where we're looking for information from the market. It's not going to result in a contract. It's not resulting in any guarantees of getting any business. It's just where we want to get market knowledge. Or maybe we even want to throw some ideas out there and have the community comment on them. They're posted though, and it might help us develop an RFP. And then we've got pre-qual programs. Are you familiar with those? No? Okay, so sometimes the law allows us to create these pre-qualified pools of vendors that are kind of at the ready to bid on something. And it allows us to be more efficient, because if they're already pre-qual, they've already agreed to our terms and conditions, they already have been evaluated to be able to do the work, so it sort of speeds up the solicitation process. These are also posted, so you're gonna see it like in two different phases. You're gonna see the initial pre-qual, which could be good indefinitely, like printing. Like if you've got printing vendors, any of you have those?
Yeah.
They should try to sign up for our pre-qual program, because then they get on this list of pre-qualified printing services, because we have an in-house print shop, but we can't do the work. We'll go out to those people. So they should try to get on that list.
For your pre-quals, is there a minimum, maximum? Sometimes they'll have a minimum, maximum. It's kind of like what we call an IDIQ, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, where there'll be a minimum baseline of expectation. If you get qualified as a vendor, there'll be a minimum level of, let's say, business that you can expect, or a
Printing.
maximum.
No,
Okay.
There's no contract, not qualified.
No contract at all.
no.
Okay.
Well, you may have a contract, but we're not gonna guarantee
Kind
it.
of state by GSA.
So it's posted when it's available to pursue prequal? That's when it's posted?
There's posted, okay, so if it's like, okay, I'm gonna give you an example, like road salt. We're gonna have we have pre-qualified vendors for road salt, so we'll put that out there first. Who can deliver road salt to the state of Michigan? We get our responses back. Those folks get contracts. But they don't really get business until we do a second tier.
When you
Okay.
need the salt.
Now, here's what we need. Project based.
And then they get contracts.
All right.
Tier 2, they call it.
Yeah.
We call it. Some are only valid for a specific period of time. Like the road salt was only like a 3-year or 5-year. Then we put that out there again, whereas printing, we use that a lot because it's like indefinite.
Does Michigan still have that printing, or some kind of Michigan printing?
That's gone away. But they have to be, it used to be that all printing had to be done in Michigan, but that law changed.
How long ago?
Probably 5 years,
Oh,
3 to 5 years ago.
Pre-qual, then will those opportunities only go to those vendors who were qualified
Yeah.
to provide
It-
salt?
yes.
So it won't be posted anywhere else?
Uh,
It'll just go to
It'll
those?
just be posted, I believe you can do the Sigma, right? Can post just to the pre-qual?
Yeah, when you post, after the pre-qual group is set, then there's a vendor list created, and the buyer, when they put out tier 2, will only bid to that pre-qual list. So nobody else will even see it.
Okay.
Interesting.
But remember, second tier bidding process. There's never one where we're gonna just not have that. Okay, so I want to talk to you about the solicitation components. You should probably be aware of this for your clients. So there's, for an RFP anyway, the most common thing that we do. These are the documents you will see in that solicitation package. The proposal instructions, the Schedule A statement of work, the Schedule B pricing, the terms and conditions, and any attachments. I'll talk about each one now. The proposal instructions, is on that cover, it comes out with the bid, the proposal, solicitation. And it has a number of things on it. It tells you, again, who the buyer is and their information. You tell your clients, again, they're only to contact that buyer. It talks about the Q&A period on that particular bid, i.e. when questions are due. There's a deadline. Make sure they follow it, because if they miss that deadline, their question might not be answered. Sometimes we will do an addendum, like we will figure out, oops, we missed something, or we want to change something, or we want to get more information. We call that a bid addendum, and we'll put that out there. So they should keep checking for bid addendums. The pre-proposal meeting we talked about, all that, the date and the location will be on that instruction document. It will tell you how that proposal needs to be delivered. They're delivered via Sigma, but if there's some reason they want a hard copy too, it'll say it there in the instructions. If there are any mandatory minimums, like let's say that a license was required, like a certain license or a certain bonding, yeah, whatever, something like that. And then we will tell you what our evaluation process is up front. We'll say, is this pass-fail low bid? Is this scored, and how is it gonna be scored? Sometimes there's a note about a clarification request. You know, what we say is that once we get bidders' proposals in, we're able to ask questions about what they proposed, and they will answer us. We're not gonna be asking them to, like, it's not an opportunity for the bidder to go, I forgot a whole section, I'm gonna give it then. No, it's gotta be like something that we got from them, that we have a question about. A notice of deficiency is when the state realizes after the bid has been posted that we forgot something or need to maybe even reissue that solicitation. And if it's something so huge that it may even involve us like opening up, like putting that bid out there again so that more vendors can bid. Reservations is just like, we reserve the right to cancel this bid at this solicitation at any time for any reason, that kind of thing. An award recommendation talks about the fact that it'll be posted, gives you information about the debrief and the bid protest, talks about the state administrative board. Are you all familiar with that? How that works? State administrative board? Right now, that means that anything $250,000 or above has to be approved by the state administrative board. So that kind of puts an extra time, 3 weeks on our process. So the buyers have to build that into their solicitation timelines. So when we make an award recommendation, if it's 250 or above, it gets sent to the state administrative board, which is a group of people, that include a representative from the governor's office, Department of Transportation, Education, I believe, and they determine if they can go forward. But it's 250 right now as a threshold. That has moved around, but I say that because it adds time to our process. Now, a newer form that has been attached to the proposal instructions is called the confidential treatment form. Has anybody noticed that? Okay, let me tell you about it. So the proposal instructions is the first part of it, and then the confidential treatment form is attached. And it's a good thing for bidders, it's a good thing for the state. Because of a change in the, not the FOIA Act, because of a change in the DMV Act, which affects the FOIA process, it allows the bidder to seek confidential treatment of certain kinds of information. Whether if they've got a trade secret or proprietary information or financial information, they can designate that as confidential. And if we agree, we will not release it in response to a FOIA request. It's a better situation for everybody because bidders were understandably reluctant to include that kind of information in a proposal, knowing that it could be FOIA. So now, if it truly is a trade secret, which is defined kind of by the US statute, Trade Secret Act, or it's proprietary financial information, we will not disclose it if we get a FOIA. So that allows the bidders to be more open about what they're proposing to us. Even if they don't have any confidential information, they have to say, I have none. Or if they do have it, then they go through and identify it. And then we know. And then they have to create a public copy of that proposal with everything redacted that they're thinking is confidential. If they don't do this, it's grounds for us not to move them through the process. We'd probably go and ask them for it. If they didn't do it, that's probably what we would do. So just make sure they do that. It's not really onerous. And if they've got confidential information, they'll want to do it.
There was a time that impeded people.
Absolutely.
They're, why the heck I'm not gonna give up my
Right,
potential trade secret, whatever.
right, right. So that was a very positive thing. And the state wants bidders to provide that information, so. Another part of the proposal instructions is the vendor questions worksheet. It's a list of questions that we include. It's got these things on it. We're asking, boy, that's like, okay, it's like moving.
Yeah, it has.
No, the projection.
So vendors have to answer questions about their gross annual sales and any strategic relationships they have, where they're doing business. If they have had any state of Michigan experience in the last 10 years, what their experience is over the past 5 years with similar work and scope and size. They're gonna be asked to agree to our standard contract terms, and if they don't, okay, then redline your exceptions. And various other questions, kind of like, do you agree that you don't use child labor, or do you agree that you're not a non-linked business, that sort of thing. But we use these questions in evaluation, so they have to fill this thing out. So make sure they do that. Yeah,
Do the different state agencies, do they release like a forecast of what they're going to be purchasing for the year?
not to my knowledge. Not right now. Maybe someday our office will start doing that, like a list of upcoming opportunities. We may strive to do that if we can figure out a good way to do it. It's kind of a cumbersome data collection process, but we will be the first, if that ever happens, when that happens, I will let the PTACs know, because it would be a very handy tool. Yeah.
And if you hear from the federal government that they have problems getting businesses to do business with them, so they're seeking to build their base of small businesses to work with. Does the state have any problems?
Roll louder.
I'm sorry. Does the state have any problems with that, or are you overloaded with people that want to do business
We're always
with you?
looking for qualified bidders.
The forecasting would help, I mean,
Yeah,
forecasting
it would
help
be.
that.
I agree. We are looking at it. It's just we don't have a good tool in place.
Couldn't you use your expiration date for your existing contracts to kind of?
You could, except.
I mean, we could do that.
You could do that, and then the thing is, you have to look and see if there are any options, and if they're gonna be exercised. Because often we do. But yes, that's what we tell vendors to do. Look at the contract, see if there's options. You can call the buyer, are you gonna exercise them or not? We'll answer that question if we can. This is the example of a statement of work for commodities and services. These are just the basic sections. IT, they have a different statement of work template. They put theirs through a new tool that spits out all the, you're talking about cyber and all that. It spits out readiness requirements. It spits out cyber requirements. Just gonna blow through these. Okay, so now we're getting into some tips. I guess the number one thing you can tell your clients, you probably do, is you gotta make sure your bid response answers the questions. The one that I'm thinking about the other day, they failed to submit an entire, key section of how they're going to do the work, which caused them to be disqualified. So the bidders have to remember that it's going to be read. It's not some dialogue they're having with the buyer. It's not like private sector where you're building relationship and all that. You have to write your proposal response so that it's clearly understood, and that the bid response is thorough and answers the question. If it doesn't answer the question, they're gonna lose points. That's probably the number one thing. Make sure all the sections are there. Do not double check your work. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then it says a link to a website is not sufficient. I guess it's been done.
I tweet tips all the time, and I get the tips I tweet, these are the same tips I tweet, and that's the one that always I put up, because it's nice and short, but it says so much.
And describe how your company, here's what we tell the bidder, describe how your company will do the work. In the statement of work, do not put your prior experience there. That goes on that vendor questions worksheet, where they're detailing my prior experience. Describe how you're gonna do the work, and how you're gonna meet that requirement on that part of the document. And then follow the format, put yourself in the shoes of the evaluator. They don't want to have to like hunt around for information if it's worthwhile to take the time to make sure the document, if they have bidder boxes, fill those bidder boxes out in the right spot. Put the information where it's supposed to be so they don't miss it, or don't make it hard for them. You tell the vendors, don't make it hard for them to find your answer. And then if we allow alternate brands, then only do this if we say you can do it. If we say you need this brand, but alternates are okay, then that's fine. But if alternates aren't okay, they'll get marked down for that. Schedule B is the pricing schedule. Again, it should be filled out clearly, so that our folks can do apples to apples comparisons when they look at pricing. Usually there's a worksheet that you can fill out. And these are just some of the standard contract terms that we have in our standard terms and conditions. Those are some of the more important ones. Like we won't basically make changes to indemnification. But if your clients have changes, they need to indicate them when they submit their proposal, and we'll consider them. Sometimes we have to meet with often we have to meet with our attorneys about it. And be aware of any attachments. Don't forget to include these about personnel, if it's like services, if it's an IT, solicitation, your business and technical requirements, any worksheets. Back to mandatory pre-bid meetings real quick. Like I said, failure can mean disqualification, and also be on time to it. This is for the bidders. Because if they show up like, when it's almost over, they'll probably be considered, that's like not being there. They come in and they have to fill out a sign in, make sure they sign in. And after the meeting starts, like the buyer often draw a line, and they'll call it under the line, like they came in under the line. And it all kind of depends, like we leave it to the buyer's discretion, because maybe they're just doing small talk for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter that bidder showed up 10 minutes late. But if they've really gotten into the meat of it, and then the bidder shows up the last minute, it will be considered non-responsive. Another thing is if it's okay if the sub goes to the pre-bid meeting, but the sub needs to sign in as the bidding vendor. Because we need to show evidence that the bidding vendor was there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. If the prime has determined that they want the sub to go to the pre-bid meeting, the sub would sign in under the bidding entity's name. Do you know what I mean? Here for XYZ Construction. Okay, we've talked about Q&A. There's nothing new there. Just make sure they have it in on time. Again, this is talking about bidder boxes, making sure you're thorough. One key point about the incumbent is incumbents are very prone to screwing this up. They feel like we know them, and so they don't need to be complete in their response. And then the people evaluating the bid don't know these folks, and so they score them down, and sometimes they don't get the bid. They don't get the award when they could have.
So that joint evaluation team or whatever, or committee, do you still do it where it's intentional that people on that committee don't know the incumbent? Or am I dreaming?
Well, like the buyer doesn't, for example. May not. So there's nothing written down in a section. The buyer may not gonna give them a good score. Yeah, it's not necessarily a fact that everybody knows who they are. Okay, we talked about mandatory minimums. Just want to flip through the rest of this. This is really important.
Should they double check?
Again. This sounds like so obvious, but a lot of awards have been sacrificed because we're not doing it. By very big companies too, by very savvy companies. They don't have anyone proofread. This one too. And then we'll talk more about Sigma later. This one comes up a lot. Okay. So, all right, you want to talk about evaluation, Lori, then we'll need to get some time from this.
So, jumping right in, how bids get from potential vendors to get, yeah, we kind of went through this. So, solicitation managers or JEC. And this walks through the steps of the evaluation process. Pricing preferences are applied, the bid is evaluated, and then there's where the vendors ask for clarifications, correct?
No, we do.
Oh, we ask for clarifications from the vendor. This response doesn't make sense. Can you clear this up? And then sometimes for, especially like bigger or more complex products, like I was on JC, there are oral presentations where the vendors will come in and sort of explain what they do, negotiations, and then the award happens. And the note there is important, not all phases below apply to each solicitation. You probably aren't going to have someone come in and give you an oral presentation on road salt. But that might be fascinating. And here is a table of how, like, this is essentially breaks down evaluation criteria. We broke it down into a total of 100. And this is something like a buyer would use, or during the evaluation process, like how you would break everything down. And if someone bids on it, they will understand what the criteria are, and then you get the total. And the weight like these are weighted differently. We weighted these a convenient 25 because this makes a tidy example, but an actual technical evaluation criteria sheet might be as long as your arm. And everything's weighted specifically, and then there's that technical threshold, and if you pass technical, you would get evaluated. We already talked about pricing preferences. This is just a rehash. This is new, so there are several types of awards. Single award, one vendor, one contract. Split award, award by item among multiple vendors. Multiple source award to multiple vendors. And regional or zone awards, award by region or zone. A good example of the regional or zone award is like a commodity, like maybe fuel. Like you got your UP person, you got your Southeast Michigan person, Mid Michigan person. And then we have an internal approval process. which we already talked about the state administrative board. So we made the recommendation, it gets approved by procurement management as applicable, and then if it's above that state ad board approval for new contracts over $250,000 or more, it goes to the ad board and then the ad board approves it. And like Genevieve said, that can take extra time, and that is usually included in those award timelines. Notice of award recommendation, I like having Sigma in the room because I can be like, I can point to them. Notice of award recommendation is posted on Sigma BSS, and notice may be emailed to bidders. The award recommendation has awarded vendor and price and debrief info on it. And by debrief info, we mean if you're like a debrief, please contact. And then we've talked about the debrief, the in-person record.
So the notice of award recommendation, so it may be posted, I mean, it is posted on Sigma and it may be emailed, so you might not be emailed the notice of award, you might have to go out to Sigma to find it.
Right. But you're gonna you get it notified, right?
So, yeah, so how that works is it actually comes out, it's, we create it'll look like a solicitation because we had to do that for the system. But it'll say, notice of intent to award, it'll have a totally different number than what the vendor actually bid on, you know, what actually first went out. But it was like, notice of intent to award for RFP, whatever, that. And so then that will be pushed out, and that notice will be pushed out to everybody that competitively bid on it by the vendor list. That's how we set that up. Other people will be able to see it if you go looking for it, right? But it should be pushed to the vendors that bid because we put that on the vendor list actually on the solicitation. So it's a solicitation type called notice of intent to award. And that would be attached to that. When they go through this, usually you'll have a synopsis, it might be like half a page or it might be 10 pages long. But we recommend that they attach the synopsis to the notice of intent to award, and everything's there as well as the buyer's name and things like that. And once that goes out, that starts with the protest period. I don't know about the email, and I have not heard that, but some buyers may or may not. There's just no, it's not a required thing. But, so that should all be out there when they've come to a recommendation of award.
Just a real quick question. So your split awards and multiple source awards, is that for more like, I mean, that's not like a joint venture, right? Is that what you're kind of talking about? Where
Like a split award would be like janitorial products, where we decided to, okay, we got a contract for cleaning supplies, we have one for paper towels, we have one for toilet paper. Split. And then a multiple would be like, we need multiple vendors because one maybe not enough, like temporary services. Like we've got one for, Kelly and, well, because we need more than one.
And we debrief, we already talked about debrief. We do emphasize to vendors that they should definitely do it whether they win or lose. The way I tell vendors that come to my table, sometimes I will get frustrated with vendors. I'm like, I spent all my time bidding on this, I did not get it, I am angry. I'm like, well, did you do debrief? Not like catty like that, but
I've been working with this for so long, I've never gotten an award. Well, did you submit a bid?
I mean, that's more of a one-on-one thing.
Yeah.
To win a bid, you must bid. But for debriefing, when I do get a frustrated vendor, or I tell them, like, very specifically, it's like, you should go through the debrief process. It is valuable, it gives you free business intelligence. And it's there if you win or lose. They'll tell you, what you messed up on. And it will, and it's good for us because it makes the bids coming in better too. So we like it when the vendors that come to you guys go through that process because it makes their future bids better. And that helps everybody. And then we already talked about My Deal. One thing to note is we do have a My Deal person on staff now that is specifically set up
Yeah, good
to
point.
market My Deal. That is, it's today's sort of the policy and training roadshow because Genevieve and I are here, and her name is Sean Vaughn, and she is in Detroit at the municipal.
Michigan Municipal League.
Yeah, the Michigan. She's at the MLL conference, extolling what we are talking about right here.
So if you ever find yourself dealing with local governments, I don't know if you do.
Yeah.
We might want to have her interact with you. We'll maybe talk more about that later.
And then you must have a state contract in order to make your available to My Deal. Resource.
I have a question on that. So you have to have an active ongoing contract, not one that, like, in the past?
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And resources, our website. If you were to be able to scroll up, you can see that contract list, and under contact us is where that buyer's list is. And then the other thing that we have mentioned is under programs and policies, you'll find the SDVOB fact sheet there. And now we're going to talk about.
Home stretch. Okay, so some of you got a little bit of a taste of this when we came in to a meeting that we had in the spring. It's called MIS, Michigan Supplier Community Program. Not to be confused with miscellaneous.
These are the slides that you don't have.
Oh my God, I thought it was freaking.
You will
World
get
ended.
in the updated digital version, and I'll also double check flag when I copy this.
Yep, and I'm going to double check to make sure it wasn't on my end either.
Okay, so how it's gonna work, and I'll give you the caveat in a minute, but, so agencies will be able to get quotes in amounts up to 500,000, 500, which is a big amount. If they can obtain, they have access to 3 bidders that meet the criteria, which I'll describe in a minute, they can go this route. So they have to be able to get solicit quotes from at least 3 of the MISC qualified vendors. So what does that mean? The vendor must meet the following requirements. They have to be Michigan-based. And you might wonder, where is that described? It's in our public act. It's basically based on payment of taxes. So they have to be Michigan. They have to be one of the following: a small business that has less than 500 employees or annual revenues of less than 25 million. That's like the SBA definition, right?
Yep.
And, so they have to be small and be certified or recognized by either SBAM, the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, or the National Federation of Independent Business in Michigan. Okay, so bear with me for a minute. So they have to be either this, so they have to be small and have one of those certificate memberships, recognitions. In other words, like a member.
Right.
So Genevieve, can you go back, because you said and it has and or, so say for instance.
Yeah, give me a minute, Delana, because
Okay.
it almost need to go through this before it makes sense.
Okay.
So they have to be small, it has to be Michigan, so it must be Michigan, can't be another state. So they either have to be a small business, meeting that criteria in the last slide, or a veteran business, or a service-disabled veteran business, or a CRO, or a Michigan geographically disadvantaged business enterprise, which we talked about earlier. They have to be one of those things, and the key part is they have to go into Sigma. They have to go into Sigma and certify as much on this affidavit. This is what it is, and it's on our website. So they have to go print it out, and they have to get it notarized. So we're relying on their self-certification that they are one of those things. And then they have to upload it with their profile to Sigma. So then they're gonna be on this MISC list. Right now, there's like 100 and some on there. Maybe it's close to 150. Okay, so then the agency, okay, they need something, it can be up to 500. They can use this program if they can find at least 3 bidders on this list that have done this. And can do the work, of course.
Is it categorized by NAICS code, by how does
This is not categorized by.
So if I'm looking for 3 that I want to submit or have them submit a bid, how do I find them?
The buyer's gonna be, that's all being worked out in our office, but the buyer in our agency, it's mostly gonna be used at the agency level because it's 500 and less, it's not so much our office. It's not our office, actually. They're gonna be having to go check this list. I can't answer your question exactly how they're gonna separate
Because
people.
if I'm looking for janitorial and I have to sift through 100 construction.
Yeah, I assume it's gonna be siftable for them, but they've gotta find 3 on there, and if there aren't 3 there, they can't use this program. And if it's something so complex, our office, just so you know, it's on the slide, but our office they have to come through our office to get approval. So the agency says, I'm gonna do a complex consulting bid. I want to do a complex consulting bid via MISC. We would probably say no. We have to post, because this is not posting. This is just getting 3 quotes. Let's see what else I got.
And what do the agencies win for using it?
What do they get out of this?
Yeah.
The fact that they don't have to,
They
they
don't
can
have
just
to
go,
post it.
they don't have to post it, they can just go get 3 bids, grab them. They don't have to go through the formal process.
They contact them to get the bid, I mean, they have to request the bid from,
Well, they're gonna go and look at the list first, because
Right.
they've gotta get 3
well, they find 3 companies,
on that list.
and then they have to outreach to each one of those 3.
They're gonna have to
and
go
say,
obtain
please
them.
submit this
Yeah,
quote.
yeah. Kind of like an RFQ, right? It's an RFQ, it's kind of like, we call it like RFQ MISC. Just a second. All right, so I said signing it. Now, this is, the reason why I didn't put it in the presentation, why, is because
You want to do,
this is
of
not.
course, go to the website. So, it should be in the slide you provide, but you can write this down as well if you wish. It's transparency.michigan.gov. This website is basically the state's open information about how they're spending their money. It's public information that anyone can access to know where their taxpayer dollars are going. And for us P-Tackers, it's a useful tool to help our clients research their competitors. That's what this website is primarily used for. So when you go to the website, it's gonna look like this. So as you can see, there's quite a few different tabs here. Some of them are links to other websites. For example, as you can see on the middle row, on the second to the right, it says MI Contract Connect. Contract Connect we saw that visited a couple times today. That's a useful resource, and it connects to information you can find here as well. A lot of these tabs you're seeing here, I won't be touching on today because while it is information, it's not really information that's useful to our clients. The primary tab that you will be using for your clients is the payment search. This will take you directly to the checkbook of the government. This is where you can search both seeing what the different agencies are spending, how much they're spending in the last year, as well as to look up different vendors and see how they've been paid and where most of their business is coming from. So once you go to the payment search, there's different tabs here. The primary one that we always end up using is the bulk download of checkbook information. This is going to give you the raw database of the entire checkbook. The other ones are good to look at. They will generate charts for you that basically, like example, if you clicked on payment by department, you would just see a simple bar graph showing which department spent the most in the last year. Now, those ones I don't find is useful to use because when you're looking at doing research for your client, you want more raw data. And I'm going to show you how we can take that raw data and put it in a format that's useful to your clients. So once you go to bulk checkbook download, you'll get an in-website PDF like this. So there's two different ways you can utilize this. One, you can utilize what's in the portal of the website, and you can also download this and use it through Excel. So if you're really proficient with Excel, and I'll show you how to use Excel with this, that's honestly, in my personal experience, the best way to list this information, but you can use it directly through the portal as well. The primary usefulness for transparency is doing research on a company's competitor. So in order to do that, you have to know what the competitor is before time. That's where Sigma comes in. If you've looked around Sigma and they pointed out a company in their area that they know is a competitor of yours, they know is selling to the government, you can search their name under the tab there on the left. It will appear as soon as you pull up this website. It will just say vendor name. So I would always recommend to type out their complete company name. You do not have to. I don't necessarily recommend including LLC or Inc. or anything on the end, just because sometimes when these enter in here, it might not be included. But other than the attachment in the end, make sure to put the full vendor name in there. And within the portal, based on the website, once you put in their name, you will get the entire checkbook of what contracts they have gotten paid. So in this example, I chose Grainger Inc. They're a very big contractor. I see them all the time whenever I'm doing research on Sigma, so I thought they'd be a good example. And this is basically a bulk information you look at on the website. On the bottom right corner, there'll be arrows you can click through and see the whole document. It's divided up by fiscal year, the quarter, the accounting period, what department that they sold to. The object category, unfortunately, is not that useful in my experience. It doesn't really define exactly what they sell. That's why I believe it's important ahead of time to know who the competitor is, because if they know they're their competitor, they know basically that they're selling the same kind of products or services to the government. But the most useful information is on the right. You can see the check date and the check amount, exactly what it was for. So that's just kind of basic information you get. But if you really want to break this down into a data that your client can really use, I would recommend that you do a download. So there's that little tab that looks kind of like just like a block with an arrow over top. It's very small, unfortunately, but that's up where it is. You'll see at the top left. Once you click on that, you'll be able to download this entire checkbook. So once you click that, it will pop up this export option. And currently, automatically, it will give it to you as export as a PDF. You want to make sure to change that. So to be able to manipulate this data for your client, you need to have it in the Excel document format. You just click on that block, change it from PDF to an Excel document. So once you do that, it will download it and open it as an Excel in your Excel program. And much like what you see in the transparency website, it's going to give it to you as a pretty much identical bulk checkbook like this. So here's where it comes in, knowing how to use Excel to really break up this data, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're trying to break down this data is to click on that green arrow in the upper left corner of the page. This will highlight the entire document. Once you've got the whole document highlighted, you're going to want to click on the Insert tab. It's up next to the Home tab. And on the very far left, you'll see an icon that says Pivot Table. This is going to allow us to create tables that will divide up the data in an easy-to-read format. So this is basically what you see whenever you create a pivot table in Excel. The pivot table tool will automatically take all the different fields within the Excel document and create different categories that you can place into different formats to create a table for your clients. So what I always do is I go to the right, and there'll be a section that says vendor legal name. So again, we're looking up the competitor, and so you're going to drag them down to rows. Another way you can do it is you can right-click on it and select it, go into rows. Either way it'll do it. I usually click and drag is what's easiest for me. After that, you want to do the same thing with department name, only you want to click and drag that into the columns. So from there, at this point, you should see all the vendors that have sold to state of Michigan in the last fiscal year will be listed on the left, and then the top columns, you'll just see all the different state agencies listed. So from here, we need to break it down to be just the one vendor that we want to look at. So in order to do that, you're going to click on a little drop-down arrow under the far left column, and we're going to do a drop-down. You'll see a category on the drop-down page that will say label, and you want to click on filters, and then under filters there'll be a filter that says contains. So contains means it doesn't have to be the exact name, as long as the name contains whatever word you put in there is useful. This can be handy if you don't know exactly what they want, what they called it within the state of Michigan. So for example, if you don't know if they include the full name or the LLC at the end, as long as the vendor name in this list contains a portion of their legal name, it will pop up. So in this case, it's WW Granger Inc. All I searched was Granger Inc., and that's what came up. So as you can see here, it's narrowed it down just to that one vendor, and it has numbers underneath each of the columns. Now we don't want those numbers, because what you're seeing there is the count. So that's the number of recorded checks that have been sent out in each of those categories. Generally what you want to know is how much money they receive from each of these agencies. So to do that, first you're going to want to click check amount, and just like we did on the department name and just like we did on the vendor name, we're going to click and drag that down to values. So this will show what kind of value that we want to appear in each of these columns. Once you've got the account there, you're going to click on that another drop-down arrow on the value. This will create, and then you click on value field settings. So this is where we decide what kind of value we want to appear in this column. In this case, we're going to want the sum, because this is the actual total amount of money that they procured from that agency. After that, what I usually do is highlight it and right-click it, and then you can select format cells. So this way we're going to format it to show the dollar amount, because you can see here, when you initially put in the sum, it's just going to put in a raw number. So once you click format cells, if you look at the categories there on the left, it'll show all the different categories that you can put the numbers into. You're going to want to click on currency so we can create a dollar amount. and it should select the input at the very top. That's the one you're gonna want. Once you've got, sure you've got everything selected, hit OK. So now we've got our first set of nice data for the client. You've got the name of their competitor, all the agencies that they have sold to, and the dollar amount that they in the last year have sold in total to them. Now, this is a very important step because currently, even though we've broken this down to a nice small data set, in the Excel's mind, it's still part of a larger data set. So in order to turn this into a graph that we can easily send to our clients that can be viewed, we're going to want to copy and paste that selection of data to another chart. Because if you try to create a chart off of what's currently up here, it's going to create a chart of the entire data set, not just what you've narrowed it down to. So select this whole section, copy, create a new sheet, and paste it there. Now, once you paste it to a new sheet, you're once again going to want to select the entire data set. And from here, we can create any kind of pie or graph chart that you want to send to your client. To do that, once we've highlighted, you're going to want to click on Insert up there next to the Home tab again, and then click on any of these charts. In my case, I like to do a bar graph because it gives a nice example of the differences between the agencies that they've sold to. As in the case of Grainger, and you can see that they've sold almost very highly to corrections. This will give the client an idea not only what their competitor's doing, but an idea of who their target agency might be. You can do this if there is multiple competitors they have in mind, you're trying to give them an idea of who to market to. I'd recommend repeating these steps with